Assalamu alaikum. This is a short presentation on Ramadan preparations 2021, very important about what the expected regulations are likely to permit and not permit in England in the masjids, in places of worship. It tackles opening and closing times, Tarawih prayer, madrasa, Iftar, Itikaf and social distancing. Please watch this video until the end. Please share this video with all the madrasas and masjids in England. I would like to take this opportunity to thank BBSI for facilitating a meeting with a senior government advisor on the 23rd of March 2021. This meeting confirmed what is expected to be permitted and not permitted according to regulations in England, due to come into force on the 12th of April 2020 during Ramadan. Thank you for allowing me to attend this meeting. The points I make in this presentation are based on this meeting. This is why I feel reasonably confident to deliver this presentation now and not after the regulations have been put in place, and also to allow masjids to in England to make Ramadan preparations as per the expected regulations and how they are officially interpreted. But please read the regulations when it comes into force for yourself. One of the most important questions asked in the meeting by one of the members of BBSI was whether regulations are likely to change from the 12th of April onwards. The answer given by the government advisor was the regulations for places of worship are likely to remain the same, that is, to continue to allow for collective and individual acts of worship, etc. If you have any questions or queries about the regulations or expected regulations, please feel free to contact me or BBSI, whose members also attended that meeting on the 23rd of March 2021. Before you consider any activity at the masjid during Ramadan, please consider answering 5 questions. Question 1, is that activity legal or permitted according to the regulation at the time? If yes, you are allowed to carry out that activity. If not, you are not allowed to do this activity, and you could be on the end of enforcement action by the local authority and police. Question 2, if it is permitted activity according to the regulations, have you updated your risk assessments for Ramadan? You must do this and date it. Question 3, have you implemented all reasonable precautionary measures to reduce risk to facilitate that permitted activity? You must ensure that this is implemented throughout Ramadan. Question 4, even if an activity is legal, please ask yourself, is it safe? That is, taking into account local infection rates, hospitalizations and deaths. Question 5, what does Islam say about weighing up the various factors, e.g. legality, safety, etc.? I don't have the expertise in this area. This is a judgment call by you whether to proceed with any permitted activity during Ramadan. Now let me make 10 points. Point 1 about the opening and closing times of masjids during Ramadan. The regulations place no limits on the opening and closing times of a place of worship, that is a masjid. There are obviously reasonably precautionary measures to facilitate opening and closing masjids. They may include to take account of security of the attendees and building, to take account of the neighbours, parking and noise, use of volunteers inside and outside the masjid, use of parking codes and more. Point 2 about Tarawih prayer. Tarawih prayer is an act of worship and is permitted according to the expected regulations. There's no limits on the length of time for the Tarawih. It could be 2 hours, an hour, less. There's no limit on the number of times that Tarawih prayer can take place at the masjid according to the regulations. There are reasonable precautionary measures to facilitate Tarawih prayer, and they include the cleaning rota, social distancing between households, ventilation, face coverings unless exempt, and notices who should and should not attend, and much more. Point 3 about madrasas and face-to-face teaching. The summary of the regulations between the 8th of March and the 11th of April permit supervised activity for children for a select group of children, that is, vulnerable children and children of parents and carers who work or seek work or train or attend for a medical appointment. Summary of the expected regulation changes from the 12th of April are these that it's due to permit supervised activity for all children. Therefore, there are reasonable precautionary measures to facilitate madrasas, including volunteers outside and inside the building to usher children in and outside of the madrasa, and to keep parents and carers socially distanced if possible. Cleaning rota, class limits, ventilation, and notices who should and should not attend, and more. And the kids can thank me for madrasa during Ramadan later. Point 4, Iftar. Summary of the expected regulations. This will permit attendees to bring his or her dates and water to end the fast at the masjid. It won't be permitted for general open food consumption among attendees, as mixing households around chicken biryani is not a direct act of worship. Please leave the dal gosh palau at home or at my home. And there's a copy of the government guidance there which says, where food or drink consumables are essential to the act of worship, they can be used. However, the sharing of food should be avoided, as should be the use of communal vessels. And that's from the government guidance. Reasonable precautionary measures to facilitate iftar include at the masjid may be only share dates and water with members of the same household, not to share dates and water with members of a different household, maintain social distancing between households at the time the ending of the fast, avoid congregating in circles at the time of ending of the fast, generally do not provide dates or fruits for general consumption, generally do not give out packaged dates or bottled water. That might be a touch point. It may increase risks of transmission. That's a personal opinion. And exceptions, obviously there are exceptions. Don't let anyone starve. So if anybody who hasn't, who's forgotten their dates and water at home, to provide that for them. Point 5 is Itikaf. Itikaf, according to the regulations, overnight stays at the masjid is an act of worship and is permitted. This was confirmed in the meeting on the 23rd of March 2021, subject to risk assessments and reasonable precautionary measures implemented. And those measures to facilitate Itikaf safely may include, and these are just personal opinions now, regular testing and notifying the masjid manager of the results, whether negative or positive, separating the location of itikaf from the main prayer area, social distancing between those on itikaf and the regular attendees, do not allow those on itikaf to eat with others from a different household, separate washroom facilities for those on itikaf. Reasons for the above. Imagine if someone tests positive and these separation measures or quarantine were not in place. The masjid, you may have to close the itikaf for all, and maybe close the masjid or the location where itikaf takes place for a short period for deep clean. Think about this particular activity, that's itikaf, very carefully. If you're going to proceed, then think about all the reasonable precautionary measures in place to keep everyone safe. Point 6. The government guidance on social distancing, it's there. I've quoted it. Please print it out and put it up in the masjid. There's been issues in different regions about what social distancing is, but it says this: adhering to social distancing means people should be 2 meters apart or more than 1 meter apart, as well as taking extra steps to stay safe, such as wearing face coverings to reduce the risk of transmission. For frequent used places, mark areas using floor tape or paint to help people maintain social distance. As I've said, reasonable precaution measures: update your markings on the carpet and put up the above as a notice. Point 7, about the regulation. Copy the relevant section and place on the notice board. As I said, excellent resource, College of Policing. Please just print off that section about what the regulations allow. Point 8, update your risk assessments. This is a must. Take account of the regulations and government guidance, including on places of worship. Point 9, review all precautionary measures inside and outside of the building. Update the notices and see my wording. There's a separate presentation on the actual wording that I recommend. Work with your local authorities, which notices they also recommend, and use volunteers. Point 10, communicate to attendees safety measures during Ramadan via announcements, short videos, emails, and social media posts. Please get the social media posts correct as to what the regulations permit, what reasonable precaution measures could facilitate this activity to keep everyone safe. And if you have a personal opinion about whether a particular permitted activity is allowed or not, then separate what that is so people know the difference between what the law is and your opinion. Point 11 is notify local authority police of masjid activities. as per what's permitted in the regulations and government and the government guidance. It's just as a precaution measures that they know what's happening, and it avoids any misunderstanding and any unnecessary complaints being taken seriously. And point 12, challenge any unfair spot checks and local authority letters. Record the visit and put in writing your response to the unfairness if you think it's appropriate, with written support, hopefully from your local national and a local umbrella organisation, and or possibly take legal advice. Please do share this video to the masjids and madrasas in England, and keep me in your du'as now and during Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.